It'll really help my breathing a lot. So it's always something, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Well, the body is so unruly. It follows that mass
It'll really.
unruly. There are no rules for the body.
That's right. That's right. All right. Well, welcome, David Fishman, Sharon, and maybe Lori, maybe Mickey, whoever wants to come on in here.
I
Uh,
was hoping
Mike,
that Mickey, because I think Lori's away. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm
that's
sorry,
okay.
Mickey.
Yep. Well, thankful Thursday. The mic's all yours, and I love to hear because God is in everything I see because God is in my mind. So turning it over to you, Dove.
I think this is the lesson. That's Brooklyn's favorite lesson. Uh, that tells her the whole course. She says. So I'm going to be speaking today on. There's a line in the course. You choose the body or you choose the mind. You can't have both. And this is like the perfect lesson for that. I mean, why would you choose the body? There's nothing there. God doesn't create bodies, creates spirit, which is spirit and mind. Mind is the part of the spirit that executes and teaches. So in this world, you are either taking care of the body, which means that you're choosing that I am a body and I need taken care of, or you're choosing the mind, which is I am not a body. I am free of the body. I am still as love created me. So the love of God, the peace of God is in within you. God is within you. God hasn't left. Oh, you haven't left God, and and we didn't create God. God created us. So we remain as is because what God creates, what love creates, is eternal and changeless. Changeless. Oh, that's a good word. So the body, which is in constant flux and change from the time of the original sperm and the egg, it's constantly changing into forms and infants and babies and old men. You got to laugh, really. Whereas mine is eternal. And he tells you, listen, an idea cannot leave its source. You know, the love of God, which is eternal, changeless, is all there really is. So I don't know why I'm talking about lesson 30, other than I was looking for Ken Wapnick's commentary. I couldn't find it. So I figured that, oh, well, I'll give my own commentary on it. Um,
It's in my. I sent you an email with it on last night.
yeah, I know. You mean, okay, I always take that one. He gives like a 1 or 2 sentence commentary. That's the one I always take. And I find it always on open minds because, but this particular time, apparently I never had it on open minds. I'm looking at in open minds goes back years, goes back what 15 years, something like that at least. Yeah, and I guess he never did uh, post it anywhere, or I would have found it. What else can I say? Uh, let me talk about something else other than today's lesson. Uh, the insanity of this world is like attack and counterattack. That I'm right, you guys are wrong, and there's no happiness. It's always fear. Let's see. Let's put it in context. So the biggest thing that came along in this century is AI, artificial intelligence. So America got off to a huge lead, and and the presidents, whether it's Biden or even Trump, has said, we keep it here in the United States. We don't want China to use any of our intelligence on it, and we're, we're gonna be the only ones in the world with it. Uh, and those companies, especially one called Vita, uh, is the star of all the companies because it makes the main chips for artificial intelligence. So it's worth now $3 trillion because of how many people put money into it. And then just the other day, I think it was Monday. Today is what, Thursday? Just the other day, it could have been Tuesday, just a couple of days ago. uh, Came an announcement from China about a thing called Deep Seek. It's the name of their artificial intelligence, and it costs a fraction of what the American AI is all about. Nvidia, the star of the companies in America that are responsible for AI, lost almost $1 trillion in one day. Because why would people be paying 10 times what it costs for the same AI if they can get it cheaper? So it just reminds me of the way the whole world works. There's you and me, us and them, right and wrong, good and bad, and I seem to be ahead, and then they hop, skip, and jump, and then leapfrog over me, and I gotta now defend myself. Uh, the world is crazy. It's just absolutely insane. It's always a contest. It's always something between you and I, which is another word for kill or be killed, or I'm right, you're wrong, which the Course calls sacrifice. And sacrifice remains the one idea behind all of the world's pain and suffering, as he tells you in lesson 187, paragraph 6. And then he says, and in your gentle laughter, you are healed. Because if you don't take anything in this world seriously, if you take it seriously, you're going to have your bumps and grinds. One day you're up, and one day you're down. And let's see, with that, I'm going to turn this mic on over to you. Hi, Lindy, Sharon. Sharon, it's your mic.
Thank you, Dub. Thank you. So this morning, I was listening to Ken, and it was just things were just landing in a deeper way. So I'm going to turn this time over to Spirit and have him lead the way. What Ken had said this morning that really is such a great contemplation and I do feel it landed correctly because it just stops the mind. And that was, we all go home together when no one goes home at all. Now that is probably one of the deepest contemplations. What he's saying basically, and we all know what he's saying, we all go home together when no one goes home at all. We are never in a world. Our imagination is nothing but an imagination of ideas and concepts and images. Once again, we all go home together when no one goes home at all. We are the Holy Spirit. And turning it over just means basically that we allow it to come through without the shrieks of the conceptual mind. Today's lesson is really one of my favorites too. And I don't know if I have any favorites because I love them all because they all serve the mind. But this one, as Dub was explaining, Brooklyn loves it. I feel that she's right on this too. When you realize God is in everything I see because God is in my mind. Now, if I'm looking at and out picturing, I'm going to say, well, where's God? So then I realize it's in the space, but we're not asked to look out there. We are asked to look inward. And the puzzle just becomes oneness, an illustration of a tiny, mad idea. Listening to Ken this morning was so magnificent for my mind because I was hearing such clarity without the ego fighting back with it. You know, normally the ego has something to say about what he's saying, such as, well, there's still a world here. Look what's happening. Look what he's doing. Look what she's doing. And that's basically what I was hearing all through the years. I mean, come on, you know, there's a world. Stop this. No, there actually isn't a world. All we are looking at all day long are our concepts. And to finally just realize that everything, you know, Ken was sharing today that I see out there is me, and it's all God. So he was mentioning in every one of his lines how imperative it is that we see the Christ everywhere because that's all that's here. It's not because we have to do acrobatics. And, you know, the ego is in the forefront until it's not. And it just slowly but surely, and there really isn't an ego. That's what's so funny. It's all about the belief in separation. But then we have these dark corners of darkness. You know, what I learned in the last couple of weeks is you cannot really process this until you look at this darkness. This darkness is what has caused all of us to hate and have pure hate for our brothers. And it's insidious. Because when Sharon, the character, loves, you know, just so nice and upbeat and kind, and what's behind that? I mean, there isn't one ego that's not the same. It's all a very hateful ego. You know, looking at my mind when I'm not in the right mind, the ego will say, well, who did they vote for? And what did they do? And, you know, if they didn't vote for who I voted for, and it's all conceptual garbage. And behind it, it's about being right. Now, laughing at myself when I do fall down the rabbit hole has been very, very beneficial. Because one of the things I've learned from Ken and Dove is taking this, even this process seriously, makes the ego come in the forefront. I mean, they didn't say that, but that's pretty much the way I have learned from my inner teacher. You're just constantly trying in some way to say, no, I'm really here. And we're not. There's just voices. AI. We are AI. You know, no matter what happens to the character, it's actually meaningless because you don't die. It's just time for you to leave, right? So when it's time to leave or exit the body for good, it'll be exciting. As Lenny Rose used to teach. Before he died, he said, the only time to love is now. So what I see coming forth in me is now the vigilance, because the kingdom is here. This is just a fabrication of ideas. So Ken has, and I do have his book, The Journey Through the Workbook, and he's a profound teacher. But the readiness of the conceptual ego has to be out of the way more so the clarity speaks, right? So he's saying this lesson is also extremely important, explaining what God is in everything I see. He is in my mind. And right, what Dove shared today was that your mind, you're not a body. The body is just coming in and out in our consciousness, and it's not our reality. It's just this character that maybe I became addicted to. But I am Dove too, and I am Lynn, and I am every son of God. Every person out there is also me, because this is an outpicturing of an inner condition of the sonship. So I feel like the lessons that are going to be learned during this time period are going to be profound. How much does the Son of God hate themselves? That's the lesson here. Because until you look completely, and that goes only for me because I'm speaking to me, all of my hatred has been projected out there. And I think I'm a nice ego. Isn't that the holy ego that we all want to be? So, the arguing that the ego has with itself when we are learning this course is profound, because if you watch it, it's actually hysterical. So he's saying here, the context again is not what we perceive outside, but what is in our minds within. Therefore, think can be substituted for see, because our eyes report to us nothing more than a reflection of what we have been thinking. Projection makes perception. Indeed, this lesson advances our understanding and experience of projection, the ego's defense par excellence for retaining our guilt under the guise of getting rid of it. And there is only guilt in this ego mind. Oh yes, there's a pleasure tool, and the ego gets addicted to it. It's like, okay, listen, you'll just have to hurt now, but look, you'll be able to get a piece of chocolate or watch a show or call somebody, or that's all that this mind was doing. And to wake up to the truth and realize that we all go home together when no one goes home at all. What is that saying? We're not here. And that is the biggest fear, at least for this mind. But now it's rejoicing in the idea that I don't have to play anymore. I can just be. I can be released from everything that I hated about me. Because if I see it up there, because we're a hologram, it is deep within me. You can't love yourself until you see that every brother is loved. And to just say, well, I can't do this because of so and so is just actually just another way the ego gets in there to usurp the power of our mind. And the power of our mind is the word of God. The power of our mind is what we believe we will see, and what we see will be our experience. Over to you, Dove. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for that. I see Mickey. Mickey, if you want to share, please do. Lindy, Lynn, anyone? I'm going to put up I did look on Facebook for anything on lesson 30, today's lesson. God is in everything I see because God is in my mind. The only thing that came up that was interesting is this photo, and it shows me in the cockpit of a plane with a panoramic view of everything, and that's like a graphic illustration of God is in everything I see because God is in my mind. If you're in the mind, if you return to your mind instead of in your body, That's the same thing as going from the back of the plane in coach, where you're in the tail and you have no idea what's going on, to actually sitting in the cockpit with God, and you are the co-pilot. There's a pilot who's running the show, and then you're there and you see everything. But the way you see is not really the idea that I'm seeing outside of me. I'm looking within because God is love. So you're looking at the love of God. So for those people who want a nice illustration of God is in everything I see because God is in my mind, that's a pretty nice photo. That's the only thing I actually found on Facebook for today's lesson, believe it or not. It was put there by Julia Day. Julia used to be a teacher here at ACM, gathered from, she's up in British Columbia. Lovely lady, lovely, lovely lady. Okay. What's there to say? I think you said it all, Sharon, truly. Is there anyone else who wants to share anything? Mickey, Lindy, Lynn?
Yeah, Mickey has her hand up.
Okay, Mickey, sure. Thanks.
So, hi everybody. Good morning. I was reading Ken's commentary on yesterday's lesson. I was rereading it because it said some things that kind of shook me up a little bit. That it's not really that God isn't in that car across the street, because that doesn't exist. Basically, that's what he was, and I always used to think, oh, God isn't everything I see, so God is in the tree, and that's what the lesson tells you to do. God is in the house. God is in this cup of coffee. But he kind of says it's not quite that, and I'm trying to find it in the book here. God is in the body. Here I'm quoting from Ken's commentary. God is in the plants. It becomes clear as you study this lesson carefully, however, that is precisely not what Jesus is talking about. The theme of these two lessons 29 and 30, is that the purpose of God, for example, the purpose of forgiveness, is in everything I see. This is so because purpose is in the mind. And my brain's trying to make this switch now of, okay, the purpose of God is in these things. Because, the Course says we made this world as a defense against the truth, right? Somebody help me here, Dev, chime in.
Yes.
Right? So we made this. So why would God doesn't even know we left. God is like, you're right here with me. What's all this fuss about? What world? So I'm just trying to process all of this, and get back to the absolute.
Can I just jump in for a second?
Please do.
God doesn't know that God doesn't know that we left because we never left. That's the entire course.
Right.
The only thing we are responsible for is to accept the atonement for ourselves. And accepting the atonement is the acknowledgement that I never left God. That's the atonement. I never left. I made it all up. I was fooling myself. I was dreaming. Actually, the Course uses the word dream. I was taking a drug. I drugged myself, and I believe my hallucinogenic beliefs that come from from hallucination. I'm hallucinating, and I believe my hallucinations. I also just found that I and uh, I and the Father are one comes also right out of the Bible. I just happened to see it when I was looking for something on chapter 30, and it comes from John 10:1, something like that. The idea that I and the Father are one, that 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 we never left. I and the Father are one. John 10:22 to 30. So I mean, I think Jesus uses a lot of the Bible, and he also comes back to repute a lot of the Bible too. He obviously reputes or refutes the idea that he said, I never said I come not for peace, but with a sword. And then says, I never said to Judas, my brother, a holy son of God, thou betrayest me with a kiss. So a lot of the Bible is completely upside down, but there are places like I and the Father are one, which is really the most common, most used prayer in the Course in Miracles, which basically says, "I am not a body. I am free. I am still as God created me." That's I and the Father are one. Back over to you. I was thinking of you, Mickey, today. I just wanted you to know I was thinking only about an hour ago. I remember I was talking to Mickey, maybe it was about 2 months ago. She said, "I'm not going to teach. No, not me." And then, of course, I think you started talking to Karen, and Karen invited you. Now you are the most prolific teacher we have here. Did you know that?
Oh, come on.
Yes, you are.
I and I stand by my word, Dove. I am not a teacher. I am, though, an incredibly happy and enthusiastic learner.
Very good.
Um, so last night, I was with the group on Zoom who are all local people, but on Wednesday nights we meet on Zoom, and we're reading. We're reading the course. We're reading that other book, the one with all the footnotes. And I'm saying that with a laugh for Lynn. um, and we got to the part where it's talking about Adam and Eve and the Garden of Eden. And I said, wait a minute, and the quote was down in the footnotes, but I hadn't looked at the footnotes. I'm like, doesn't it say in the Bible that if you cannot eat from this tree that contains the knowledge of good and evil? And I've always I I've always stated that one sentence in the Bible is the course in one little sentence. If you eat from the tree that has the knowledge of good and evil, you have eaten the ego, you've eaten duality. You are then in the world of black, white, up, down, us, them, like Dove was talking about before. If you have an us and a them, you are firmly rooted in duality. You cannot get to the non-duality that the Course is teaching us. And I'm like, why didn't the Bible just stop there? You cannot eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. You cannot go into duality. You might never come back. And the whole thing stopped for me in that moment. I'm like, why did we not just stop there and say, oops?
I just want to jump in because the ego wanted to prove it to you, and the way he proves it is Cain and Abel. There's good and evil.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's all over the Bible. And how nobody reading that book didn't catch on to that. That, first of all, Adam fell asleep and never woke up. And you decided to go know about duality and never came back. Oh, so Lynn's right. Oh, Lynn, come on in and talk. Lynn says there are two different. Oh, there are two different trees. Right. So Lynn wrote in the chat there are two different trees in Genesis: the tree of life and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And I'm a newbie. I have to admit, I'm a total noob when it comes to the Bible. I've told you guys that we have Bible study on Thursday afternoons. I have an interesting day on Thursday, like 3 or 4 hours of course stuff and then a Bible study. And so I'm full of course energy. And my dear friend who leads this thing, who's a retired Methodist minister, I've always got to jump in and say, well, the course says, she just looks up at me and goes, yeah, I know what your course says. And I don't believe that God doesn't know me personally. He is there for me. And she's very wedded to that. And I can't blame her. It's very comforting.
Well, if you use the word God, uh, technically, I guess that's true. But if you use the word love, the love is within me. I don't have to look for love. I am the love.
Right. Maybe I'll hit her with that one today, later on today when we get together.
Using,
All right.
using the word God always gets into duality. There's God and there's me.
Right.
I remember many years ago, someone who was a teacher here said, I want to dedicate this song to you. And the name of the song was Me and God. I'm sure I have it somewhere, or Lynn has it. It's a great song. There's me and God.
I love that. Okay, I'm going to let go of the mic now.
Okay, I'll take the mic now. Thanks, Mickey, for sharing all that. I love Mickey's teachings. So, what's happening, I think, for this mind, and I think I'm hearing Mickey say the same thing, is it's landing deeper when you know that you're really not here, and there never was a you. And that came really clear today, and it was interesting because when I saw what Ken was teaching this morning, we all go home together when no one goes home at all. And a lot of times, some of my course friends will say, well, I want to go home. And there would be a voice in me that would say, well, you're already home. But I would think that was the ego. But that's not the ego. We are already home. So the AI that's appearing in our world right now is just consciousness giving itself some hints. And the story that we're in is so meaningless. And yet the meaning, because God is the power, the word is the power. So we can dream up anything. Every image is coming from a desire to see still the world, right? Because this whole world is not here. So he's saying today, Ken, because it's like there's one, he brings in, like, this man knew that this text inside out, like in such a way, just a brilliant man, and a brilliant older brother, really, right? So perception seems to teach you what you see, yet it but witnesses to what you taught. So we're teaching ourselves that we're these people and believing it's special, because after all, if we're special, then we're better, different, and separate. And so It is the outward picture of a wish, an image that you wanted to be true. Now, it's all about the fear, because all of us want love. I mean, we want to be happy and we want to love. But the fear is so great inside the mind of God that if we don't look at the darkness and see that when we are talking, or the character Sharon, is talking about a character out there, that's me. I mean, I have the same hologram. Means hologram. It means wholeness. What you see out there is what's in you. So if you see the Christ, well, that's all there is. And you can't be in two worlds at a time. You have to be in one or the other. And, it is fun to play in the phenomena. We have to admit, it's a lot of fun. But the fun comes when you know it's not real. The fun comes when you don't take it seriously. Because the ego is all tension. There's nothing in the ego. I had so many beliefs that are starting to just frizzle away, because it's like, what am I doing? What am I doing talking about worldly affairs all the time? Why? Well, it's fear. I'm not here. I have a voice, period. Now, years ago, it was probably 20 years ago, I've spoken of this before. I was at a rebirthing retreat, and I had a very, very hard time at this retreat. I was just, every egoic fear was just all there. And I'm breathing and breathing, and I'm sobbing because this wonderful teacher was playing music that really went deeper into the being. And what I saw as I'm breathing, because when you're breathing, you're not talking. Well, you are talking when you're breathing, but a breath, a holographic breath work, you have to, slow your mind down. And it pretty much opens up what's inside, and I do breath work off and on as a meditation, because it's profound for your seeming body because of the tensions. It just does something. And if you're not guided to that, well, that's fine too, because it's not necessary. There's nothing that's really necessary because you're not there. But the progress that I've made, a lot of it was with breath work. So as I'm breathing, I hear Sharon's voice, like an AI voice, say, and I see darkness, right? Because I'm inside. Oh my God, I'm not breathing by myself. That was my thought, just like Byron Katie, because there's no Byron Katie or Sharon that's apart. It's a symphony of voices. We are all in this together. And the only thing that we're doing all day long is either being or just fighting with our thoughts. So I had this. Ken says our secret wish is to keep the separation, but to see the responsibility for it in another. And we don't even realize that. I didn't. No, I love everybody. I love people. No, I can't love people if I start talking about an evil so and so. A holy ego wants the world to be great. A holy ego wants the world to work. A holy ego wants the person for president to give everybody everything. But that's not what we are. And I think Ken Wapnick has probably frightened this mind over the years, because I have so much of his stuff. And, it's now I'm eating it like candy. But for years, it would just sit, because I thought, well, he's long-winded and he's this and he's that. Let me tell you, it's fear. It's fear that I have never been here, that this image is nothing, that all my great stories mean nothing. And, I always say, when I do fall down the rabbit hole, well, you just keep going, because you can't stop this, because it is organic. It's happening on its own. The time is set when everybody really just says, okay, enough. I don't want this anymore. When I went to the doctors yesterday, I realized I have this thing called, it's acid reflux in my sinuses, which is very unusual. But I realized that spirit is calling me inward to not eat a lot anymore. I don't need a lot of food. Food is another distraction for this mind. I'll go get breakfast, like when I'm on here and just enjoy listening to everybody. But really, spirit is changing this mind completely into what it really is, which is no thing. And I just absolutely, as an ego, could not understand it. And that is just the whole secret. If you're in the ego, you're not going to understand it because there's something that the mind relishes of with the ego because it wants to be the best this and the best that. Look, I'm a sensitive one that wants the world to work out. Well, no, 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 no. There is no world. That's what it's basically saying. We all go home together when no one goes home at all. And that does scare the mind, of course. But what's happening now is the foundation of the awareness is so strong that all I do is put my attention there and it stops. Because it's like believing attention is really all that we're doing. It's believing attention when I believe that this world is really real. And attention is really our power too. So, when I see that this world was nothing and I don't become indicted. And by the way, what happens to this mind is I get really like, oh, this is good. Look, what's the story? Well, and I hear the ego sometimes, it really doesn't wish anybody well. It really doesn't. It doesn't wish me well or anybody else because we always have right mindedness with us. So we can appear like we care, but the ego's there. And by the way, if you have an ego, it's 100% hate, 100%. Even if you think you're a nice person, because you're not an ego. There is no ego. This is ephemeral. And when I say ephemeral, I mean that it's just this like tissue paper that's just this like absolute nothingness. Nothing at all. No thing. It's liberating. But for me, I have to kind of like just be with that because it's just going deeper. And that's what I really believe everybody in this group is what's happening. If I look in memory, which is never, something you want to trust, but in memory, I could say that it's taken a long time to realize, and this was just a month ago that I was having a temper tantrum over the political situation. The character's never going to like that. She wants her way, and she wants everybody to believe that she's right. If we don't know what anything is for, what does that really mean? We're not here. All of it is pointing back to the fact that you have never been here. The character is just like this thin lace, a veil across awareness, loves awareness. That's all that's here. So, and it's funny because the ego doesn't like to be told like, that it's wrong or that it's, not doing this right. But it also doesn't want to get out of the show because the show is all that it is. And so if it's out of the show, then it comes up with thoughts like, oh, I'm bored. Get something to eat, watch a movie, do this, do that. And that's just another way of stalling for the moment that we are. The moment is your miracle. The moment. So, I don't know. I mean, there's not much else to say. I'll give it over to Mickey and Dove because, I'm just sitting with the fact that we all go home together when no one goes home at all. That means nothing happened.
Her hand up.
Okay, I didn't see that because I'm on. Okay, oh, Lori's here. Okay, yeah. So when we realize that there's just an AI voice that's called Sharon that's talking, and pretending that she's this character and she's different from Lorri. Anyway, Lorri, the mic is yours.
Hi, everyone. I just woke up. I got in late last night to Michigan, so I decided, no, I'm not even going to try to set my alarm to come on because I just want to rest. So I just woke up and wanted to fill you in on the happenings in the dream. It's very interesting. Last Thursday, so it was after our meeting, I got a call from my sister, and I was still in Mexico, and she said mom went into hospice. And I did not expect that. When I left 3 weeks ago, that day my mom went into the hospital with pneumonia, and I was crying, and I said to my sister, I said, I'm just afraid she'll die while I'm gone. And well, she did. She, of course, we know there is no death. So on Monday, my mom made her transition. Well, on Thursday, after Thursday, I was like, oh man, do I go home from Mexico or what? And I wanted to come home. My other sister flew in from Florida to help, and she's a nurse, and she was the one who, well, they were both with my mom completely. And then my brother who lives here ended up in the hospital on Saturday. It's just been one crazy dream with bodies going haywire. So, what happened is I tried to get a flight home, and the airline website declined my credit card 3 times. I kept trying, I kept checking the numbers, and um, the thing is my credit card worked everywhere else, but the airline declined it. So it's like, okay, that's God or that's Holy Spirit blocking my way home. Well, fortunately, I had been able to video chat with my mom every day from, well, yeah, even before she went into hospice. I think I was calling her, and then I was video chatting with her, and I'll tell you what, she did it great. She was like, okay, all right, I'm out of here. I'm ready to go. And she just talked to everyone, and she willed it. The power of decision is my own. We decide our own death. And it was very interesting to watch. She just said, okay, I'm done. I've talked to everybody. And Monday morning, I called and saw her, and it's like, whoa, she's really close. And an hour later, she made her transition, and it was just so cool because she wasn't hanging on. Um, yeah, I don't know. Dev, you put bodies going haywire. Sounds like how Lynn opened this morning's session. So I wasn't here at that point, so I don't know what was said. Um, body egos are like a bull in a china shop. And Lindy, I see your hand, and I'll drop the mic in a second here. But anyway, it was pretty cool. I was just so pleased with my mom and how she said to me, I said, Mom, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to make it home, you know? And she said, that's okay. She goes, we're always together. And my mom got it. And comparing that to how my dad, years ago, he died, he passed 13 years ago. Um, he hung on and hung on and hung on, and he was scared to go, didn't want to go. And she was like, I'm ready. I'm going to get to see my child who miscarried that I never got to meet. I get to meet my mother. Her mom died when she was 6 years old. I get to see my grandson, my sister's handicapped child who died when he was 18. And so anyway, what was happening was, um, let's see, bodies are blind. Oh, notice our center picture on lesson 30, being with God in the cockpit sees all. Oh, yeah. Well, she passed on Monday, which the lesson was, above all else, I want to see. And so what happened when she passed, and I found, and I'm like crying, and getting into sadness, and on the other hand, feeling very happy for her because she's free of that body, which is kind of like, I'm jealous. I mean, I want to be too, which I can be with my choice, right? So Monday, I am thinking of that, above all else I want to see, above all else I want to see. Now don't go into grief, don't go into it, that's the ego. So I was feeling tearful, I was feeling sad. And so I was looking at it going, okay, what is the belief beneath my tears? And the belief was, she's gone. I'm going to go home and she's gone. She's not there. I can't go over and visit her anymore. And, see, you can see, I start crying at that thought. And then it's like, look at that belief. Look at that belief. What is that belief? Oh, it's a belief in separation because it wasn't the belief in death. Well, of course, separation is death. We know that, but it wasn't the belief in death because I know she's okay and I'm happy for her. I'm really happy for her. And when I was grief stricken around Rod and around my dad and around my former boyfriend, I was so grief stricken that I could not feel happy for them. I could think, oh yeah, they're better off. I know they are, and I'm glad for that. But it was a thought. For this with my mom is a feeling. It's like I know she's happy, and I'm so happy for her. And at the same time, I feel this loss, this separation. But it was like, no, I'm above all else, I want to see. I am not going to feed this. And I could hear my mom's voice in my head saying, don't cry. Don't cry over this. You know where I am. And my mom could be like that. She could be kind of like strong and firm. And, you don't need to cry over this. And it was helpful. And then being at Namaste Village down in Mexico, which is where I was when my first husband made his transition back during the pandemic. And Calico, a lot of you know of Calico if you've watched any of the James Twyman stuff, and Calico was at David Hoffmeister's group too for a while. Well, Calico Hickey at that time said the best thing I could have ever heard, and that was, um, she goes, I don't mean to sound flippant or anything like that, but he hasn't gone anywhere. And so Monday morning, her voice came back to me. It was like, she hasn't gone anywhere. So do not feed that thought that she's gone. So anyway, that's what I wanted to share. And Lindy had her hand up. I don't know if it's down now, but Lindy, if you want to take over the mic, I'm going to drop the mic here.
Thank you. Thank you, Lorri. That was very interesting the way you put that. As I listened to lesson 30, God is in everything I see because God is in my mind. I was laughing at myself the other day. Let me back up a little bit. I joined or registered to hang out with some senior citizens at a senior citizen community center. So I remember speaking to Dove this week or last week about giving myself a grade. And Dove said, that's part of the ego, Lindy. So I told him, I said, I did good. I gave myself a A plus. But it's so interesting, the perspectives that are coming out of God is in everything I see because God is in my mind. So I go to this center and I started recognizing everything in the spirit. I said, listen, you exercise this course that you are involving yourself in, or because you're going to wind up grieving again. Because when I think about the process of grieving, like I lost my mother in 2020. Well, I shouldn't say lost because she's not lost. What I should say, mother departed from this realm of the universe. That's the way I should say it. And I grieved her departation. Yes, that's a word. Is that a word? Somebody help me. So I grieved this for a long time. I'm gonna have to say about 3 to 4 years. I grieved mother's deportation or deportation. I guess that would be the proper way to say that word, because I'm the ego is always trying to articulate how to talk. You can't do nothing but laugh at yourself. But anywho, so I said, don't start grieving again, because when you start grieving, you really are by yourself. I mean, because I was by myself for 4.5 years grieving my mother's deportation. And I really didn't want to be around any spirits. I said, no, I don't want to be bothered with no spirits right now. Most I'm sure that's the ego talking. So I go to this center. I've been going now whenever the spirit leads me, because I won't go on my own. I'll be like, spirit, lead me when to go, because I don't want the ego start acting up, because you know me. I don't know me. So all these spirits started coming at me. I mean, I saw so much stuff going. I mean, usually it's very orderly. Well, let me take that back. Now, I'm not going to say usually, because that might imply something else. What I'm going to say is, when I first went up in there, it was very orderly. You can feel this, you can sense the spirit of love, the spirit of peace, the spirit of unity, the spirit of one. Right? So I said, "Ooh, I like this place because it reminds me of my course I'm taking." Right? So the other day I went in there and it was just chaos, seemed to me. That could be the ego looking instead of the spirit looking. It was just too much going on. I said, this too much, this too much, this the ego talking now. So then I said, what does ACIM tell you? Begin to look at this oneness, this one spirit, and see what you see. And I saw God in everything I was seeing, everything I was doing, everything I was listening to. I said, don't separate yourself. Let's see if you can practice this. Don't separate yourself from all these folks, right? All these spirits. That's what I should say. I shouldn't say folks, because the course teaches us not to meditate on the physical, but do your best to meditate on the spirit. So I'm reminded of what Dove said, Linda, that's the ego grading yourself like that. So anyway, making a long story short, I just wanted to say, for the first time, I actually applied what I learned. We all one. When you look at that one, you're looking at you. When you thinking thoughts about that one, them the same thoughts you thinking about yourself. So anywho's, I began to rely on the spirit, the oneness. And I began not to compete with the other spirits, because I do that. I saw that. What I was learning, I guess what I'm trying to say here, because, we try, nothing I say, I forget what Dove told me how to say it, but I'm going to go back to lesson 28, where it tells us about what we're saying, and none of this stuff matters. And, the spirit is doing the talking. So I began to rely on this thought, and I actually began to notice how things got a little calmer and more peaceful. And so I just wanted to share that experience I had by seeing, I see everything. I see God in everything, because God is in my mind. And so when I didn't separate myself from the others that were around me, I began to feel the peace that I wanted to experience instead of the grieving that I've been experiencing. Because when I was grieving, I started paying attention to my behavior and what it was I was doing. And I wasn't doing anything. I just sat on top of my bed and I just meditated on the spirit of that was living inside of me and how it was causing me to behave. So to just wind this up, I prayed and I said, I think I'm ready now to be how you created me. Because I wasn't doing nothing. I mean, I wasn't even allowing the spirit to guide me anywhere or help me do anything. I was just lying there being still. I guess that's what I was doing, but I was ready to do something. I said, and I didn't know what it was. So I just said, Spirit of truth, show me how to do what you created me to do, how to be who you created me to be. So I'm so interested in doing lesson 94. And I'm trying to get on the schedule. And I'm having such a time getting this message to Lynn. And I said, wait a minute now, just pay attention to what the course is telling you, because I didn't want to go into the ego because I was having a hard time getting her to schedule me. And then Zuma, I'm just falling in love with this little spirit, right? I got a hold of her one day and we got to talking, and then I had to get back with her about a conversation, and it was so hard to get back with her. And I was like, okay, what you gonna do? I said, well, I gotta be patient because the spirit is patient, because these spirits are in us, and we just need to exercise what the spirit is causing us to do in every situation that we find ourselves in. And so when I saw myself trying to get a hold of Lynn, get a hold of Zuma, I said, okay, now don't disturb your peace. Don't disturb the peace of the spirit. That's what I'm saying. Because the peace is there. But the ego, like Doves told me when I talked to him a couple of days ago or a few days ago, this ego is sneaky, y'all. It really is. And so I just have to say I am really enjoying the refinement of what the ACM course is helping me to stop separating myself from the one spirit and stop competing with the other spirits that I run into, but just see myself in those in the oneness of who we all are. Because what I did in order to get the thought right was I did like this. We are all called human beings. And every last one of us got eyes, ears. I say ain't nothing different when the spirit was placed in the vessel. So I said, every last one of us got the same thing. I can see it now. And so I said, now, don't let your eyes go a dancing over here or gazing over here and thinking you any different than that when you looking at, somehow it just helped me see by using the word that the spirit is placed in the vessels. And those vessels are the same. When you look at those vessels, and there's no difference. Everybody got the eyes, everybody got the head, everybody got the nose, everybody same. They may be shaped a little different, but It's still the same. It functions the same way. So this was really a good lesson. And this lesson here that we're doing now, I can see God and everything is really helping me put these thoughts in the right perspective so that I can be aware when that old sneaky ego come in and try to make me special, try to make me God's favorite. I love that one. Because you know what? For a long time, I used to think I was God's favorite. Wasn't nobody like me, honey. He just picked me out of the bunch and said, come up a hither. You my favorite. And I just realized, look at this imagination going wild. Well, thank you for the opportunity to share this. This was so funny.
Thank you so much. And yeah, it's good to hear you, Lindy. It is time for Zoma, but Lori has her hand up, and I don't know if Lori, if you still want to say something. Uh,
Yeah, I just wanted to say something real quick, and Linda, you made me laugh about I'm God's favorite. We're all God's favorite. That's a good thing to know that God loves us that much. But I just wanted to say real quick about Calico because Lynn, you wrote on the board you love Calico. I visited with Calico, and she is preparing for her body dropping. She's just matter of fact about it, and we talked and said, I'm not sure I'm going to see you here next year. She just has this thing of, I think I'm done. I think I'm done. And Calico always used to talk about mind training, mind training. And I said, you're not saying that anymore. She goes, because the mind has been trained, it's done. And we were going somewhere, and James passed her, and she said, because they were just talking, because one of the people down there had just made her transition and they had a memorial service. So Calico said to James as he was walking by, James, when I go, I don't want a memorial or anything, just have everyone go out and have a margarita. That's it. That's all I want. So I just wanted to share that Calico is preparing, and very happy about it. So I'm done here. Bye.
Thank you, Lori. And yeah, Calico has been preparing. I mean, when I first met her, which has been years ago, and we were traveling around with Lisa Natoli and Bill Free and James Twyman and going all over California and doing meetings and stuff. And she had just got out of hospice. She had been in hospice, and they were preparing her to die then. So don't take any predictions on people who are planning to die because they don't know. Anyway,